The city, fast and relentless, and as we're slowly discovering, dirty. Whether driving to our workplace or using electricity to power our plasma screen televisions, science is showing that the emission of carbon is contributing to increased global temperatures that threaten our natural environment. And governments are only now standing up and taking notice, looking for creative ways to solve the problem. The Uambi cattle station is a long way from the city, about 4.5 hours drive northwest of Sydney. It's also the site of a project looking at sustainable carbon-based agriculture, headed up by Louisa and Michael Kiely. Home to sprawling paddocks, a few thousand head of sheep, and their trusty cattle dog Lucy, this is more than just a sheep farm. The ex-city folk are investigating farming practices that offset carbon emissions with the view to selling the credits. The couple inherited the North Mudgee property in a state of disrepair and are undertaking measures to bring the land back to life.
One of the very first practical measures in a grazing sense, in a grazing environment, is to stop putting your animals on the place all of the time. Now, the practice is called set stocking, so you must change from having your a small number of animals on a piece of land for a long period of time to having a lot of animals on a small piece of ground for a short amount of time, then leaving that piece of ground but leaving a large amount of rest. Why? Because that allows all of that growth to come back. It mimics what nature does.
The Kiely's farming practices seek to sequester as much atmospheric carbon as possible, offsetting emissions and bringing vibrancy to their paddocks and biodiversity to their property.
It's a very little known fact, James, that the only thing that actually can take carbon out of the air is photosynthetic activity. All of your wind and your solar and all of those, they will take quite a long time to get to what we call base load amounts. So they're actually taking the load off the coal so that we can wean ourselves off the coal. The agriculture can help in that 10, 20, 25-year period of time because we can start taking it out of the air immediately. We can move our sheep, we can stop ploughing the ground, and we can start taking it out, and we can provide that bridge between future technology and what we have now.
What the couple have discovered, and are stressing to anyone that will listen, is that there's uncapped potential to capture carbon in soil.
Basically, you need to make sure that you're looking after the life under the ground, James. It's a very interesting thing that we have ploughed our soils, we've looked after our animals, we've looked after other parts of our farm, but our soil and our soil life is where the carbon life is.
An issue identified by the Kielys is that there's very little incentive for farmers to sequester carbon under present schemes. They believe a system that allows interaction between business and environmental operators could solve our climate issue. With the government's carbon pollution reduction scheme shelved for the meantime, it's clear that the government needs to find a compromise between the needs of green groups and big business. And whether the solution to our carbon emissions lies above or indeed below the soil, it's clear that action needs to be taken within the next 10 years. But even the greenest members of Australian Parliament don't believe that soil, or even private enterprise, holds the solution. Lee Rhiannon believes that the buck instead stops with the government.
It's no way to deal with this, such a challenging problem, and that's why the Greens strongly push for government intervention as well as the trading scheme. And we do need to have governments that have got the political will, because the experts tell us that renewable energy is commercially and industrially viable.
She also doesn't see laws requiring lower emissions from polluters as an answer.
Well, look, business clearly has a role to play, but the responsibility certainly lies with government to drive the change. I mean, just passing a law requiring business or anybody to change with something as complex as this is not the solution on its own.
But she can certainly see an opportunity for private enterprise to turn a profit from climate change.
Now, some people may make a profit out of it along the way, but that's not going to be the driver that achieves the change. I'm not ruling it out, but it's certainly not the solution to the incredible challenge that we have, which is reducing greenhouse gas emissions and doing it quickly.
We believe in
But in the meantime, the Kielys will be doing all they can to make carbon farming and credit trading a widespread practice, and eventually a money earner for struggling farmers.
It's reasonably unlikely to be their major source of income. It could be very well an excellent supplementary income. So the good bit about it is you do not have to take your land out of production. As I'm increasing my soil carbon, I'm going behind and I'm bringing my sheep behind that. I'm not taking my sheep off my property, I'm treating my soils, and then I'm putting my sheep back on. So if I then have an amount of money that helps me to put down those biological fertilisers, make the fences so that I can move my sheep more often, all of those things, then we've got a win-win situation.